on the anniversary of your independence. The United States and Indonesia share a rich democratic tradition and immense national pride. Just as Americans celebrate the 4th of July as America's Independence Day, Indonesians all over the archipelago will be ringing in this day with celebrations and festivities. On this, the 69th anniversary of Indonesia's independence, I wish everyone Selamat Hari Kemerdekaan Republik Indonesia.
Halo, selamat siang. Kurang semangat. Halo, selamat siang. Merdeka. Karena memang perjuangan untuk masuk ke sini. Oke, saya lihat dari tadi sudah ngantri dari jam 11 ya. Mulai banyak yang masuk. Tepuk tangan yang udah masuk dan kalian berhak masuk. Butuh perjuangan memang masuk ke sini ngantrinya. Selamat datang di Amerika, nama saya Lexi. Ada yang baru pertama kali ke Amerika? Oke. Tahu dari mana acaranya? Boleh tahu? Twitter. Oke. Sokmed savvy. Good. Saya akan ceritakan sedikit apa itu Amerika. Amerika is American Center from the US Embassy Jakarta. It's a place where you can learn America or even have a discussion between Indonesians and Americans in a fun way. Like today, ya. Kita akan membahas bagaimana caranya masuk graduate schools di Amerika. Oke? Kalian tahu tadi siapa yang di video awal? Wah, nggak dengar, kurang subtitle ya? Hah? No, kan mau sekolah di Amerika nggak perlu subtitle. Okay, that was the ambassador, Mr. Robert Blake. I'm gonna call his wife, Miss Sophia Blake, to the stage to give her remarks.
Selamat siang. I will speak English because you may not want to hear my bahasa Indonesian. But I could try this next time. Welcome to America. I want to thank Mengglobal, the US Embassy, and America for organizing this event. I'm Sophia Blake. I'm also known as the wife of the American ambassador. But more importantly, I am very interested in promoting US education. I know where you're all coming from because I myself am from Bulgaria, and as a young student I ended up studying in the States, first at a community college, then I negotiated my transfer to Brown University, then I got a master's degree in Paris, in France, and then a master's degree at Georgetown University. Maybe my experience is not as vast as I wish, but because of that, I feel very passionate about talking about US education. And this is for a number of reasons. 3 mostly. So let me tell you what these 3 reasons are. First of all, I think you will like going to the States to study because you will feel very comfortable in a setting that appreciates diversity. Now, diversity is widely used as a term in Indonesia and in the States to a point where you stop appreciating its value or relevance. But what that means is that when you arrive in the States and at the university, you will find it very easy to fit in. It will be very easy for you to find people like you from other places, and you will feel accepted immediately. And that is not true elsewhere in the world. When I go back to my home country, I'm surprised to find out how many people from my country find it difficult to deal with people from other places. Similarly, when I was in France, completing my master's, and there was an opportunity for me to work in France, I remember very clearly choosing not to do so because I realized that I will never be accepted as a full member of society there, and I will always be a second or third rank citizen. So not only will you feel accepted in the States, I hope right away, but diversity is seen as a necessary ingredient to building a successful economy and strong society. Americans know that their country is made of immigrants, that somewhere in the recent past they have somebody in their family who comes from somewhere else. So as a result, American universities are actively seeking international students, or students that come from various economic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, not only from other countries in the world, but from within the States. So when I was in college, I knew people from Alaska, from Oklahoma, from Kansas, from Florida, because just like Indonesia, America is a big country where people from different areas don't really have the same thinking or understanding. And putting them in a place where open mind and critical thinking are what you do usually brings good things. So I think that going to the States will be not only interesting, but will be you'll find it a welcoming experience. The second reason I think going to the US is a good thing for you to do is because of the top-ranking facilities that most US universities have in terms of libraries, research centers, laboratories. Now again, in my case, working in social sciences, most relevant for me was the library. And I remember going to the Brown Library the first time, and I was blown away by the number of books and how easy it was for me to access them. Now, in France, when I was doing research, I had to go take a paper, do the catalog, what I need, write it on a piece, go talk to a nice lady, make sure I'm very nice back to her so she can let me check the books. I mean, it took hours and hours for a simple thing. At Brown, you walk in and there are a number of people who helped me get my research done, get the books. If the books were not available, they would borrow them from another library. In 2 days, they would arrive. The library is open until 2 o'clock in the morning every day, because if you want to work late at night, well, you should be allowed to do so. There is a vast online research library, which costs thousands and thousands of dollars for the universities to subscribe, that is not available to me or to you now. So being at a university with incredible resources makes it easy for you to do what you want to do. Now, when I talk of facilities at universities, I also mean part of that soft infrastructure is what I call. In other words, the availability of support in terms of counselors and administration to make your life easy outside of the academic program. So when I arrived in the university, there were a number of people where I could ask any kind of question that was not just about the graduate program. Where do I want to live? How do I find a place to live? Can I afford it? If not, can they find me work? Where do I find Bulgarian groceries? How do I rent a movie? How do I go from Boston to New York? Where are the good places to eat? How do you open a bank account? Anything that you need, you can find easily people in a system that is in place. Why that is so? Because universities want you to be successful. And in order for you to be successful, just providing good professors and good laboratories is not enough. You need all your other needs to be met. And a successful graduate will be a wealthy and happy graduate who will speak well of the university and hopefully will contribute in the future to the university. So it's all in the university's interest to see you reach your full potential no matter what you need. Now again, this is different from other places I've been where what you're guaranteed is a graduate program, and if you work hard enough, you're going to get your degree. The third reason why I push for American education is because of the wide range of courses. And again, I'm not saying anything new to you. And most of you may have decided what you want to study already. My added bid to you is to draw your attention to interdisciplinary studies, which is where I believe the frontier of knowledge is, and which is where I believe a lot of the top universities are going. Interdisciplinary studies simply mean combining one or two or three actually, academic fields. It's about creating something new by crossing boundaries and thinking across them. For example, in my old university, a big new trend in graduate studies is neuroscience. In others, it's combining biology and computer science to do biometrics. In others, maybe nanoscience and computer. In others, maybe humanities and medicine. My favorite example in an Indonesian setting will be sustainable development, which is an area that borrows from social studies, from economics, from environmental studies, something which I believe Indonesia will need more in the future. And why do I think this kind of new thinking and combining of sciences is important? Is because the problems that we face today cannot be squarely put in one area. They're not just engineering, they're not just chemistry, they're not just social sciences. They will need the combination in the thinking that borrows from a lot of areas. So, what does it mean to you? And how that applies to you? Indonesia has 8,000 students already studying in America, undergraduate and graduates. Use that when you apply. You've got incredibly good reputation in the States already. There is a growing awareness of Indonesia's importance in the world, and that is only going to increase. Use that. When you prepare applications for your schools, build an application that weaves all these different identities that speak about you as an Indonesian, you as a person who comes from a small place. Talk about your personal story and how that relates to who you are, why you are who you are, where do you want to go from here, what drives you, what lessons you've learned, what failures and mistakes you have made. All of these in an application process is very important. But the bit of it is we want more Indonesian young people so we can learn from each other. And American universities are ready for you and are ready to offer scholarships for you. As your application go forward, again, think of the things you want to study and think of the things that will apply to what you want to do in a new, when you come back to Indonesia. If you want to be engineers and if you want to be business managers, that's great, go ahead. My personal plea to you is to consider more creative and service-oriented studies, because this is where I think the need in the future for Indonesia will be, is in really building more industries that are part of that new creative, artistic business thinking. So demonstrate that ability to think creatively and outside of the box and combine the things that you see as relevant today going into the future. Lastly, I want to tell you, and this is really last, about a new program which the US Embassy is launching with the help of Mengglobal. We call it Mentorship Program. We want to launch it, started in January, and it is meant to help people like you who are interested in going to the US in guiding you very much like Mengglobal does, together with Mengglobal, in guiding you through choosing and applying to colleges. We want your input in what you think will work best for that program. It will be online. It will have mentors, people who have graduated from US universities from Indonesia, who would be most helpful in telling you how to do it, and what's good and what's not so good, which I think is very important, because I didn't know how to do this when I was doing it, and I learned as I went, and I was lucky in many ways. We want to be that help and resource to you. So I know outside there are forms that for now ask if any of you want to be mentors, in other words, already graduates. From what I see, I think most of you want to be what we call mentees, in other words, willing students, students who want to apply in the future. So fill out your details and tell us how we can help. I will be available here throughout the session. If you want to talk to me afterwards, I'd be very happy to. Stevia has my email address. So I think if any one of you want to reach me and ask questions, Stevia can somehow provide it. She's the master of social media and in reaching to you. And to all of you, I wish you success, the best of luck, and making the best choices, because no matter what you choose, it will be great. Thank you.
Terima kasih Ibu Sofia. Oke, kita mulai saja sesi kita. Saya akan panggil dari tim Indonesia Mengglobal, Mbak Stevia Angesty. Berikan tepuk tangannya. Oh ya, yang dari luar boleh silakan masuk dulu sebentar.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you again for coming to our 4th seminar. And I mean, it is like an amazing crowd. So I will make sure that I keep this introduction very short so you guys can hear what the other speakers would like to tell you. So I'm Stevia from Indonesia Mengglobal. Allow me to briefly introduce Indonesia Mengglobal through the story how it started. So about 2.5 years ago, there are 3 Indonesians at Stanford. We were having a very casual dinner, and this topic was never expected. Then one of us actually brought up this very interesting topic about how hard it was for her at that time to find somebody who could review her personal application essay. And then it was about how hard it was for him to find somebody who could write him a quality and robust reference letter. And about how hard it was for me to find somebody who would want to study SAT with me. So that was our story. We all shared the same pain of finding somebody who could tell us and answer our questions. So we decided to ask several of our friends from Singapore, from Malaysia, from China, from Taiwan, even from Vietnam. Everyone actually told us they have some sort of forum, some sort of platform online to talk about, to discuss, to share their pain. But why not Indonesia? So that is how Indonesia Mengglobal started. I won't bore you more with the details. You can check out our website at www.indonesiamengglobal.com. So enjoy the seminar. Thank you.
Hi guys, I will be the MC throughout the session today, and it will be really short as well. First, thanks at America for allowing us to be here today and for giving us the opportunity to have this event. And thank you, Madam Ambassador, for the robust insights and insightful insights. We'll keep in mind the 3 reasons why we should pursue grad schools or education overseas. And first on stage, we will have Bapak Haryanto Budiman. He's the country head and managing director of JP Morgan Indonesia, and he holds a PhD in Aeronautics and Astronautics from MIT. Pak Haryanto, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the nice introduction. Wow, I guess I never expected that the turnout to be this big. But it's a pleasure to be here. Again, Mrs. Blake, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's good to be here. First of all, I would like to thank Indonesia Mengglobal and also the US Embassy for organizing this event. I think this is a very good event, and more of us should share with you all about our experience. I think like what was mentioned earlier about my background is actually rather unique. I'm a banker, right? Not just a typical banker, but I'm working for a global bank. I am pretty much the country CEO, and I'm responsible for JP Morgan business here in Indonesia. So it looks like my background should be in finance or economics, but that's not really the case. I have a PhD. I studied at MIT. I think you probably know what MIT is. I graduated in 1996, about 18 years ago. And I'm literally a rocket scientist. Right? I have a PhD in Aeronautics, Astronautics. If you are actually interested to learn about my PhD thesis, you can type my name, Haryanto Budiman, MIT. You can go to a website called dspace.mit.edu. You can read it online if you are curious what I did. But again, I think once you read it, you'll fall asleep immediately. So in case you have problems sleeping at night, please read it, and then you will fall asleep. It's about 350-page document, and then full of formula, mathematical formula, simulation, whatever, and it will make you asleep very, very quickly. I don't want to bore you about my life story, but what I'm saying is this is pretty interesting because I'm actually somebody who actually pursue a PhD in a very technical field. But at the end of the day, I switched my career completely. So there must be something right about what I studied earlier in the US, right? Now, before I go into a bit more detail, again, I intentionally do not want to use any PowerPoint document. I just want to have this forum as interactive as possible, and I don't want to spend more than half an hour talking here. I want more questions from you all, so hopefully we can make it as interactive as possible. If you want to ask questions in Bahasa Indonesia, by all means, please do so. Right? I can answer also in Bahasa. I can speak Bahasa, of course, because I'm Indonesian, right? Okay, just a bit about background. Let's step back a bit. The world that we are living in now is getting more volatile. I think you read the newspaper every day, you watch CNN, you watch even Indonesian media. Very volatile, very unpredictable, very uncertain, very complex, very chaotic, very ambiguous. Nobody can predict what's going to happen even in 1 year's time. Okay, 1 year time, nobody can predict. The prediction is likely going to be wrong because a lot of things are changing. You see what happened with the crisis in the Middle East, the crisis in Russia. Whether you like it or not, that will impact the economy of the countries that are interacting with them. Most countries in the world are getting interconnected. So I think to prepare ourselves, tomorrow is our Independence Day, and I think we will have a new government soon. We will need to create more and more leaders. Okay, you all are going to be the leaders of the future of Indonesia. right? I'm not that young anymore, but you guys are really young, and this is actually an opportunity for you to learn. I'm not saying that to be a leaders of Indonesia, you must graduate from the US. That's not what I'm saying, right? But there are some advantages of pursuing an overseas education, particularly in the US. I'll tell you why. Mrs. Blake mentioned about the educational system in the US. You can go to any website that has the global ranking of universities in the world. Time Higher Education Ranking, sometimes QS World University Ranking. You will learn that amongst the top 10 best universities in the world, US universities occupy at least 6, if not 7. They are the names that you are very familiar with, right? Harvard, Stanford, MIT, some Ivy League schools. If you go to the top 20, the number ranges between 12 to 15. Okay, so it's telling us something, that there is something right about the educational systems in the US. What are you learning by going to schools in the US? Few things. First, you will be involved in cutting-edge research. That's what I did about 20 years ago when I started my program at MIT in 1992. I was involved in a research project sponsored by NASA, looking at failure of composite materials. It's very exciting because I spent my summer at NASA at Hampton, NASA Langley Research Center, and my PhD dissertation is actually sponsored by NASA. So in essence, I have a scholarship actually from NASA. It's really, really interesting how you actually try to solve leading edge, you're at the leading edge, at the frontier of science and technology. Right now, we are talking about nanostructure, we are talking about combination of engineering, science, and also biology, how you actually look into these 3 areas. This is actually cutting edge research. And that's something that you can be part of if you actually pursue a master's or a PhD at a university in the US. The second reason why US is actually interesting is the fact that you'll be able to learn from the world experts on certain subjects. In the US, unlike, for example, here in Indonesia, from what my friends told me, senior professors do teach in the US. They come to class, they give lecture, and you, even though you are only like a first-year student or even a master's student, you can interact with them. In certain countries, once you are designated as a professor, you do not teach anymore, right? Or maybe you teach only like once a month. You delegate all the teaching to your assistants. But in the US, if they actually teach a course, they will be there. 3 times a week, they will show up, and you can interact with them. That's a great opportunity for you to learn from them. The third reason is that you'll be able to develop network with students from other countries. Very, very clear, right? This is an opportunity because they are also in your shoes. They are studying in the US. They will be future leaders of their respective countries. So these 3 reasons actually make a lot of sense for you to consider going to the US to pursue your postgraduate education, your master's, or even your PhD. Now, I want to share with you some statistics. Mrs. Blake mentioned there are like 8,000 Indonesians studying in the US at the undergraduate and graduate level. I don't have the global statistics, but what I have is actually the statistics of graduates of MIT from ASEAN countries. Our country, Indonesia, how many people live here? You know what the population of Indonesia is? About 250 million people, right? There are only 88 people from Indonesia graduated with a master's degree from MIT. There are only 16 people, 1/6, that actually have a doctorate degrees from MIT. Right? Wow. 88 and 16. And out of the 16, only 6 people are working in Indonesia right now. Right? So imagine that, 88, 16, 6. Let's compare that to Singapore. What is the population of Singapore? Anybody knows? 5 million. Okay, 5 million people live in Singapore. You know how many Singaporeans have master's degree from MIT? Take a pick. 100? No. 580 people. How many PhDs? Close to 110. Okay, you say, well, please don't compare with Singapore. It's not fair, right? Singapore is already an advanced country. Okay, let's look at Malaysia. Malaysia, the population is about 30 million people, so like 1/8 the size of Indonesia. There are 100 Malaysians who have masters from MIT, and there are 13 Malaysians that also have PhDs from MIT. They are 1/8 of our size, right? Now, we all know that we are entering a very challenging regional economic development, which is the ASEAN Economic Community. We need to be more competitive going forward, right? Clearly, human capacity and human development is an important element that needs to be addressed for us to be able to be competitive with the other ASEAN countries in the region. So this is the challenge that I give to you. That's why I want to excite you to be able to have a high aspiration. I want you to go to the top schools in the US. Although I want to also make a caveat here that be careful about looking at ranking, okay? In reality, I think if you understand the so-called the school system in the US, there are different sub-specialization. Say you are an engineering major. Even within engineering, there are different types of engineering. Yeah, you have aeronautics, you have mechanical engineering, you have material science, electrical engineering, computer science, petroleum engineering, nuclear engineering, the list goes on and on and on. Not one school is #1 in each of the area. For example, you want to study petroleum engineering. What is the best school in petroleum engineering? It's not MIT. MIT doesn't even have a faculty in petroleum engineering, right? It's not. So which one is it? Anybody knows? Texas, very good. Which one? There are 2 Texas universities, right? One is Texas A&M, the other one is UT Austin. They are both very good in petroleum engineering, right? So both are really good at petroleum engineering. Now, let me ask you about agriculture. What is the best school in the US in agriculture? Is it MIT? No. Is it Harvard? No. So where is it? Texas A&M. Very good. It's the Aggie. That's why they call it the Aggie, right? They are #1 in agriculture. So as you can see, right, you don't necessarily have to apply just to the top 10. There are a lot of good schools in the US who are also #1 in certain field and certain subspecialization. So, okay, nice and interesting. The question that you might ask is, so what do I need to do if I want to go and study in the US? Well, there are several steps, right? I would classify it first into the preparation phase. You will need to take some tests, for sure, right? If you want to apply it to the US. #1 is usually TOEFL, test of English as a foreign language. So take that test. Then depending on what you want to study, if you want to study at the MBA level, then you may take GMAT. If you want to study at the engineering or science level, then you probably take GRE. Right? Get yourself prepared for those tests. Now it's a lot easier for getting information on the internet. It was very difficult when I was actually looking for to go to school in the past. It was really difficult. Information was not readily available. Now it's really easy. Uncle Google can help you, right? Uncle Google can help you. You can practice online. You can even have a lot of discussion with the other students as well. But it was really, really difficult back then. Prepare yourself well. Second thing is, make sure you do the following. You write your essay really, really well, because every single university will ask you to write a personal essay. Write really well, explain who you are, explain why you want to study at that place, and what your career aspiration is going to be. Very important to write something quite compelling. Tell also the admission officer that, look, listen, I'm I also did this kind of extracurricular activities, this social work. Make it interesting. You need to stand out. Your application needs to stand out because they receive thousands and thousands of applications. Make sure your personal essay is done properly. I think there will be some session on how to write your personal essay later, but it's a good thing for you to start practicing. The next one is actually recommendation letters. Extremely important for you to get a very strong recommendation letter. Usually about 3 recommendation letters from people that work with you. The problem with a lot of applicants from Indonesia that I understand is you ask somebody for a recommendation letter, and what the person wrote is actually quite shallow. Oh, Mr. XYZ used to work for me. He's a good person, very good grades, and I highly recommend this person to be accepted at your university. That recommendation letter will not get you anywhere, okay? You need to make sure that the person that is willing to write a recommendation letter for you is willing to write something more holistic. Explain to the collection committee, this is the person, Mr. XYZ. I know this person because this person used to report directly to me for X number of years. This is what I saw about this person, complete with strengths and some development needs as well. And also explain why going to school in the US, pursuing a master's or a PhD will make a difference. This is very, very important. A lot of people overlook this, but honestly, recommendation letters, very, very important for anybody, right? And then say you get accepted. You've done your research, you have identified the schools you want to apply, and then you got good recommendations, you get accepted. Now you enter a master's program or a PhD program. Welcome, right? Welcome to the real life. I tell you, right, I can share with you my experience at MIT. I love the school, despite the fact that it was hell, okay? It was really hell. It's very challenging. And imagine, I was starting in January 1992. Immediately, for some reason, I guess I was a bit unrealistic myself. I decided to take an advanced course in mathematics. I thought, I'm very good at math, so let me just take this advanced course directly. I don't want to take the basic math. Wow, that class was amazing. 40 students, all are PhD students. Most of them are from mathematics department, some from physics, some from nuclear engineering department, and I was the only aeronautics guy there. But it was probably one of the best courses I've ever taken in my life. Very challenging, a lot of discussion, a lot of argument, with the professors, a lot of debate with the other fellow students, but at the end it was really lively. You can expect that when you go to the top schools, right? You'll be interacting with students from all over the world. These are pretty much the top students. And then you argue with them, you interact with them, you challenge them. And in the US, the discussion in the classroom is very lively. Okay? It's not like a one-way communication. Only professor is lecturing to you and you just take notes and you take the test, and then if you do well, you get an A. Not the case, right? A lot of class participation is required. You'll be working in some class projects. You need to present your findings. So this is the kind of thing that you can expect once you go there. And then at MIT, we had to take the so-called PhD qualifying examination. And this is serious stuff. Because the passing rate at the time was 70%. And students could only take the test once. So if you were unlucky, you fail, I'm sorry, you cannot continue. So it was quite stressful, even for me, right? I was like studying really, really hard because all closed book, closed notes, only one question from each subject, okay? So imagine, you study physics, right? I mean, you study physics, you know that physics has so many different elements of physics. Questions can come from optics, can come from electricity, or from magnetism, from mechanics, from thermodynamics, but one question, right? The written part and the oral part. I was lucky I passed, but one of my best friends actually failed. So he had to go to a different school to do his PhD. They're quite serious about it. And then we need to work on research. Right? Of course, like I said to you earlier, I was sponsored by NASA, so I spent summer at NASA Langley doing research and as part of my dissertation. And then there's another test, like 6 months before my PhD dissertation defense, called PhD General Examinations. That one is not too scary, to be honest with you, because usually we pick up the questions on Friday morning at 9 o'clock. It's due actually on Monday at 9 o'clock as well. So only 3 questions. But they're all open-ended questions. Right? Open-ended. There could be even multiple answers, multiple correct answers. It's open book, open notes, but you cannot ask anybody else. You have to do it on your own. It's an honor system. And on Friday you pick it up. On Monday you return to the graduate office. But it was fun. I mean, the question was like really, really real. I mean, real life situation. And the final one is the PhD thesis defense, which is presenting in front of your PhD thesis committee, and if you pass, then you get a PhD. Now, so it was really, really a great experience. In my humble opinion, I love the school, despite that I had to work really, really hard. But I think it's all worth it. Now, what happened after PhD, right? People keep asking me, hey, you get a PhD, so what's next? Some people decided they want to go and teach. They join a university as an assistant professor. Some people actually decided they want to do research. So they join, IBM or Intel, becoming a research engineer or a scientist. Some people decided if you are in a biology major, that you join a pharmaceutical laboratory trying to find a new medicine for cancer, for AIDS, or what have you. There are also some non-traditional career path, like what I took, right? Because completely non-traditional. I decided not to use what I learned in school. Instead, I completely learned something totally new. And I want to share with you in closing, there is a good book by Claudio Arauz. Okay? Arauz is a senior expert at a company called Egon Zehnder International. It's a big headhunting firm. He mentioned that in the future, knowing that the world is getting more volatile, more unpredictable, more complex, more chaotic, more ambiguous, it is more and more important for you to focus on your potential than on what your knowledge or your experience. He defined potential into 4 elements. The first one he said is curiosity. How curious are you? It is very rare that you will use what you learn in school in your day-to-day life, unless you're a medical doctor or you're a lawyer. Right? If you're a medical doctor, of course, you will be using what you learn in school to treat a patient. But even if you are an economics major, even if you are an engineering major, once you graduate from an engineering school, you may not be using what you learn in school. Curiosity is quite important. That's why what Mrs. Blake mentioned about interdisciplinary study, studying different areas. I think that's spot on. I think that is really spot on, because you need to be able to be flexible nowadays, right? And for you, you need to hone your curiosity. When you're in the US, please do not just mingle with people from Indonesia, right? The biggest mistake that Indonesian students make when they are in the US, they hang out with Indonesian students only, right? If possible, live in a dorm. Hang out with people from other countries, people from the US, people from Europe, from from China, from India. Get to know them. Be curious. Be curious about their country. Be curious about what they study. It will be very useful for you. Point number 1. Point number 2. People that will be successful in the future, people that can have insights. Okay? You can do great analysis. You can even win a Nobel Prize. But if you cannot communicate your idea, you cannot draw insights from your analysis, it will be meaningless. It will be meaningless. You need to be able to go 2-3 layers below your initial analysis. Because remember, we are living in an interconnected world. Your analysis may say that the answer is A, and A has the following implications. But don't forget, that implication may be only like the first layer, the first order implication. There could be second order, third order implication as well that you need to think through because the connectivity that happen with different areas. The third one is determination. If you want to be a leader in the future, you need to be very determined. You need to have a lot of energy. Trust me, in real life, you will fail many, many times. I fail many, many times myself. Right? Being in an academic environment at the university is the best place to fail. Not to fail your grades, right? But to fail, for example, when you do a research, you said that you have a hypothesis, it's going to be A. At the end of the day, your experiment shows that the answer is not A. The answer should be a different answer. You need to start over again. Do not be discouraged when that happens. It is going to happen again and again. And then for you, it's a good training ground for you to learn how to address failure. Because in real life, once you leave academia, trust me, you will fail. Again, not just once, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 times. But the successful ones are those that can recover from the failure. Now, the fourth thing that Arauz mentioned is actually engagement. Engagement is how you interact with other people, how you interact with other students, how you interact with your professor, how you interact with different people, different nationality. Why? Because in real life, you'll have to interact with people from different countries. You'll have to interact with people of different social status. You have to interact with people of different educational background. That's life. You need to be able to engage with people at different levels. Okay? Your EQ becomes important. And again, if you go to school in the US, you have plenty of opportunities to practice and sharpen your engagement skills. And again, let me repeat it for you. One is curiosity. Second one is insights. The third one is determination. And the fourth one is engagement. If you go to the US, remember that. Okay? Remember that. You go to the US to study, even at the master's or even at the PhD level, you don't just go there to study and then get your degree and then finally done. That's the end of your struggle. No. You want to prepare yourself to be the leaders. And for you to become the leaders, those 4 elements, very, very important to consider. I think I will end my speech here, and I would like to be able to answer a few questions if there are any, and then let's make it interactive. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Haryanto, for the really, really insightful views on how pursuing graduate schools in America and like how you switch career. And this is the first time I met a rocket scientist. I'm in awe. So really sorry that we can have a Q&A session because the time is very limited. But we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the discussion later at 4:30 to 4:45 after the discussion, and we'll only provide 30 seconds for each person to ask a question. So just state your name. So just prepare your questions right away. State your name, where you're from, what do you study, or what do you want to study, and where you work if you're working. And now we'll take a 15 minutes break. And during the break, Krista from Indonesia Mengglobal will announce the raffle winners for those who followed and who participated in the raffles earlier. We announced in Indonesia Mengglobal. You can stay, but for others who would like to go to the toilet or do something else, you can. So the break starts now. Thank you.
Pak Haryanto, could you come up to the stage, and Ibu Sophia Blake, so we can take your pictures. It's a tradition for America. Yang mau ke toilet harap dicap tangannya sehingga bisa masuk lagi. Oke. Pertama berdua dulu, nanti sama tim Indonesia Mengglobal ya. Oke, tim Indonesia Mengglobal silakan. Kalau bisa jangan banyak-banyak dulu, nanti masuknya akan susah lagi. Jadi dilihat-lihat dulu gitu kalau mau ke toilet. Karena waktunya sangat terbatas. Ini hanya 15 menit. Udah foto with the Indonesia Mengglobal team. Sorry Audrey. With the Indonesia Mengglobal team. Yes. Mari silakan. Setelah break kita akan ada presentasi